Okay, so the first thing we're going to do for our Martin O'Neill edit is to go to File and open up our portrait image. Once you've got your portrait image open, we're going to use the quick selection tool, or the shortcut key here is W on your keyboard, and then we're going to add to our selection. So I'm going to select just the portrait using the quick selection tool. Once you're happy with your selection, we're going to go to Refine Edge at the top of your screen, and we're going to just increase the radius, and hopefully when we're increasing the radius, your edges should become a little bit more crisper. And I'm going to use a smooth tool as well, just to smooth off them edges that maybe are a little bit pointy at the moment. I'm going to increase this radius just a smidgen more. Excellent, that's looking a bit more realistic. And then finally, I'm going to output to, rather than selection, I'm going to go to new layer. This means it will copy and paste this selection onto a new layer. So when we press OK, you'll see our new layer will appear here in our layers palette. Here it is, and we've hidden our background layer here. So we're now working using this new selection. So now we're going to place on top our next image, which will be some flowers or a scene. You're going to go to File and Place, and then I'm going to select a flowers picture, this one, and place. And I'm going to use the corners of the image to resize it. I'm also going to hold down the Shift key on your keyboard, which is above the Control key. This makes sure we're resizing it properly and not making it oddly sized. So it just needs to make sure it covers the whole of our image. Once you're happy with that, we're going to click the tick at the top of your Photoshop screen. Okay, now on your keyboard, you're going to need to click or hold down on your keyboard CTRL or Control. Once you've held that down, we're then going to click on our background copy layer here. You should see a load of marching ants which resemble the picture of your portrait on top of your flowers. Once you've done that, we're going to click on the layers palette. Okay, so now we've got the cutout of our flowers using a layer mask on our flowers layer. Now what we need to do is start slicing off and cutting off some of these flowers to reveal the portrait underneath. So if we use the lasso tool here, and because we've still selected our layer mask over here, we should be able to just make some cutouts or selection down the bottom, and I'm then going to use the paintbrush tool down here. Use the paintbrush tool. You might need to increase the size of your brush, and it needs to be 100% hardness. You also need to make sure you've selected black to allow your layer mask to show the person underneath. So here, I'm going to start painting black, and it will reveal my portrait underneath. Make sure you go across all of the edges and then colour all of that back in. Okay, now we've done that section, we can start moving on to the next section. We need to deselect this selection, so Control and D on your keyboard, or Select at the top and deselect. Next, we're going to go back to the lasso tool, and we're going to cut out the next part of your image. So we're going to select this section. Make sure we join them back together. We're going to go back to the paintbrush tool here and paint back in. So again, we're getting all the corners and we're painting that back in. Okay, like we've done previously, Control and D on your keyboard to deselect. Back to the lasso tool, and this one, again, we're going to moving up and show a little bit more. Now I'm going to keep these flowers here, and I'm going to select somewhere around here. Trying to keep the selection quite rough, like it's a tear. Back to your paintbrush and paint that back in. Okay, and then Control and D to deselect. I'm going to go back to the lasso tool and select the next section to tear off. Now I'm going to get a smaller selection here. Use the paintbrush tool again and paint that back in to reveal the next section. And I'm going to Control and D to deselect. But I'll go back to the lasso tool and then put my next selection in. The paintbrush tool. Control and D to deselect, and then I'm going to finish off using the lasso tool again just to take off the top of a hair and show that using the paintbrush. Paint that in and we can see that's come back now. Okay, Control and D again to deselect. Now at this point I'm going to use the brightness and contrast to adjust both images till you're happy with them, making sure they're popping the colour nicely. And adjusting them slightly. When you're happy with that, let's close that. And finally, we're going to add a background to our image. So I'm going to select a blank layer from the bottom right hand corner where it says create a new layer. And you'll see here we've got a blank layer. We're going to use the paint bucket tool. This might be underneath the gradient tool. So left click and hold, paint bucket tool. The shortcut key on keyboard is G. Using your colour selector, I'm going to select one of the nice yellows in this image, so I can pick from this, press OK, and then just by clicking, it will fill it with that colour I've just selected. This, I'm going to click and drag it to underneath that image, and now we've got our image complete. Now, if you want to go back and work on any more cutouts, you can click back on your layer mask here and go back to your lasso tool and maybe add another little cutout somewhere else that you want to add to it. Use the brush tool again, and as long as you've clicked on your layer mask here, you can paint black. And it should then disappear. I think my Photoshop's just crashed.